Now that you know the basics, it's time to model a game asset. In this tutorial, that will be a Maul. I've provided the link to the reference we'll be using in the description. The hotkeys I'm using are in the lower right of the viewport. Make sure you're in front orthographic viewport, which is numpad 1. First, delete the default cube to clear the scene. Second, use Shift A to open the Add menu, and under the Image section, choose Reference. Locate your reference image and load it into Blender. We'll be using the Maul in the middle. Select the reference image and move it along the Z-axis using the G and Z keys until the bottom of the pommel aligns with the 3D cursor. The reference is a bit off-center, but we'll work around it. In the right side view, which is numpad 3, move the reference back along the Y-axis so it won't interfere with the primitives. We'll begin by making the handle of the Maul. Use Shift A to add a cylinder, making sure not to click away from it. In the popover in the lower left corner, change the vertices to 16 and the radius to 2 inches or 51 millimeters. Also change the cap fill type to nothing, since we won't need those faces. Now close the popover. In the outliner, double-click on the cylinder and rename it to Handle, and drag it into the collection. Move the cylinder up along the Z-axis by 1 using G, Z, 1. This will place the cylinder in the needed position. To make sure we can scale the cylinder from its base, right-click on it, and under the Set Origin option, choose Origin to 3D Cursor. Open the Properties panel using the N key. Make sure you have the cylinder selected and open the Item tab. Under the Dimensions section, change the Z dimension to 5 feet or 1.5 meters. Close the Properties panel using the N key. We need to make some adjustments to our reference image. Use the Z key and go into wireframe mode so we can see through the cylinder. Select the reference and move it down along the Z-axis using the G and Z keys until the bottom of the cylinder is on top of the hand counter. Remember, you can hold down your Shift key to move slower and have more control. We need to scale the reference to fit the cylinder. I've already made some calculations, and I would suggest scaling the reference by 95% of its current size. To do this, select the reference and use S plus 0.95. This is how you scale objects to a precise measurement. Select the handle and use the Z key to enter Material Preview. Use Ctrl A to open the Apply menu and choose All Transforms. This will apply any scaling or rotation and make it easier to texture and further model the object. Under the UV Editing workspace, temporarily hide the reference by clicking on the eyeball in the outliner. In Back View, which is Control and Numpad 1, and Edge Mode, which is 2, select the center vertical edge. Right-click and choose Mark Seam. In order to properly UV unwrap an object, you need some seams. They act like the seams on your clothing. Use the A key to select the entire handle. Use the U key to access the Unwrap menu and choose Unwrap. We don't want the UV islands to appear to be stretched because this will cause issues when we add textures. Under the Overlays menu, activate Display Stretch. What we're looking for is to make sure the UV islands are a blue color, preferably dark blue, which means that there's no stretching and the texture will wrap around the object correctly. Since these UV islands are all blue, we can turn off the overlay. Back in the Layout workspace, right-click on the handle to open the Object Context menu and choose Shade Auto Smooth. Under the Overlays menu, choose Face Orientation. This will show us which way the normals are facing on the object. Everything on the outside should be blue. If anything is red, select the object and in Edit mode, with the object selected, use Shift-N to recalculate the normals. This is extremely important because any normal that is not facing the correct way will not be seen in a game engine. For the textures, I'm going to recommend using Ambient CG. The links for all the textures I'm using are in the description. I'll be using the 2K JPEG option. Once you have the texture downloaded, unzip the folder and place the unzipped folder in the same location as your Blender file. Under the Shading workspace, select the handle and click on the New button to make a new material. Click on the material name and rename it to Wood. Make sure you have the Node Wrangler add-on activated under your preferences. This offers a way to work with the shader nodes that will make your workflow easier. Select the Principled BSDF shader and use Ctrl-Shift-T to open a file view and locate your texture. Select your ambient occlusion, color, normal, the GL1, and roughness maps. Then click on Principled Texture Setup. This will properly set up your textures except for the AO. To set up the ambient occlusion texture map, use Shift-A to open the Add menu. Under the Color menu, select Mix Color and drag the node beside the AO map node. Change the blend mode from Mix to Multiply. Connect the color texture map to the bottom input of the Mix Color node. Connect the AO texture map to the top input of the Mix Color node. Connect the result of the mix color to the base color of the Principled BSDF shader. Change the factor of the mix color to 1. This controls how much we see of each of the other nodes that are connected to this node. If we zoom into the handle, notice that the wood is being wrapped horizontally around the handle rather than vertically. Select the Color Texture node and open the UV Editing workspace. Select the handle using the A key. Hold down your left mouse button and drag to select the UV islands and rotate it by 90 degrees using R and 90. Use the G key to move the UV islands back onto the texture map. Under the UV menu, choose Pack Islands. Open the popover and uncheck Rotate because we don't want the UV islands to be rotated. Back in the shading workspace, we can now see that the grain of the wood is correct. The wood texture looks a bit too large. To correct this, we can change the tiling of the texture by changing the scale on the mapping node. Hold down your left mouse button on the X scale and drag down to select all three axes. This way we can easily change the scale on all three axes at the same time. If I change the scale to 2, the wood texture looks much more natural. However, the normal map looks a bit too strong. We can easily fix this by lowering the strength on the normal map node. Select the strength of the normal map and change it to around 0.5. Unhide the reference by clicking on the eyeball on the outliner. Go back to the layout workspace. For the hand counter, make sure you have the main collection selected in the outliner and add a UV sphere. In the popover, change the segments to 16, rings to 8, and the radius to 2 inches or 51 millimeters. Then rename the UV sphere in the outliner. Tab into Edit mode. Use the Z key to enter wireframe mode. Make sure you're in face mode, which is 3. Hold down the left mouse button and drag to select the top half of the UV sphere. Use the delete key to delete the selected faces. Use the Z key to go back into solid mode. In edge mode, which is 2, use Alt and the left mouse button to select the top edge loop. Use the E and S keys to move your mouse to scale in the edge until it is just slightly smaller than the radius of the handle. Using Ctrl R, add a horizontal edge loop to the top face loop. Double-click to confirm the edge loop. In face mode, 3, use Alt and the left mouse button to select the top face loop. Use Alt-E to open the Extrude menu and choose Extrude Faces along normals. Then move your mouse upwards to extrude the selected faces outwards. Select the top face loop. In order to make sure these faces are flat, use SZ0 to scale the faces along the Z-axis to 0. Then repeat this process for the bottom face loop. Tab into Object Mode, select the hand counter, and use Ctrl-A to apply all the transforms. Use the Z key to enter Material Preview mode. Under the UV Editing workspace, temporarily hide the reference by clicking on the eyeball in the outliner. In Front View, Numpad 1, and Edge Mode 2, select the top and bottom edge loops of the extruded faces. And the top and bottom edge loop of the bottom part of the handle counter. In Back View, control Numpad 1, Shift select the center vertical edge for the extruded regions and for the rounded bottom part. Right-click and choose Mark Seam. Use the A key to select the entire hand counter. Use the U key to access the Unwrap menu and choose Unwrap. Hold down the left mouse button and drag to select the UV islands. Under the Overlays menu, activate Display Stretch. It appears that we do have some stretching on part of the object, seen via the light blue color, but this is within the acceptable level of stretching. Turn off the overlay. Under the UV menu, select Pack Islands. Open the popover and increase the margin to add some padding between the UV islands. Back in the Layout workspace, right-click on the hand counter to open the Object Context menu and choose Shade Smooth. Under the Overlays menu, select Face Orientation to make sure the normals are facing the correct direction. Under the Shading workspace, select the hand counter and click on the New button to make a new material. Click on the material name and rename it to Metal. Select the Principled BSDF shader and use Ctrl-Shift-T to open a file view and locate your texture. Select your color, metalness, normal, and roughness maps. Then click on the Principled Texture setup. The material texture looks a bit too large. To correct this, we can change the tiling on the texture by changing the scale of the mapping node. Hold down your left mouse button on the X scale and drag down to select all three axes. If I change the scale to 2, the metal texture looks more natural. Back in the Layout workspace, add a Subdivision surface modifier. This will make the hand counter appear smoother. Change the render amount to 1. We'll use a division of 1 because we do not want to add a lot of extra geometry. We will be applying the modifiers after we're done modeling everything. Adding this modifier has smoothed out the edges too much. To correct this, select the hand counter and tab into Edit mode. Use Ctrl-R to add a horizontal edge loop to the center of the extruded faces, double-clicking to confirm the action. With the edge loop selected, use Ctrl-B to add a bevel. Drag your mouse upward until the two edges are close to the original edges. This will sharpen the edges while keeping them smooth. We also need to add an extra edge loop to the top of the rounded part of the hand counter. Use Ctrl-R to add a horizontal edge loop to the top face loop, double-clicking to confirm the action. Click on the G key twice and then move your mouse upwards to slide the edge toward the top of the rounded section. In face mode, which is 3, use the C key to access the Circle Select tool and left-click in the center of the very bottom face of the rounded section. Right-click to finish the operation selection. Use the I key to access the Inset tool and slowly move the mouse to inset the faces. Tab back into Object mode. Now you can notice that you have a smooth object with sharp edges. In Bottom View, which is Control Numpad 7, hold down the Shift key and right-click on the center bottom of the hand counter. This will move the 3D cursor. When I add a cylinder, it will now be added at the new position of the 3D cursor. Also notice in the popover that Blender kept the same options from the last cylinder we added. Scale the cylinder down so it intersects with the bottom of the hand counter. In Edit mode, go into Vertex Select mode, which is 1, and Wireframe view. Select the bottom ring of the vertices and use the G and Z keys to move them down along the Z-axis to the proper length. This will be the base for our leather texture. In the UV editing workspace, in Solid View and Edge Select mode, which is 2, go into the back view, which is Control Numpad 1, and select the center vertical edge. Right-click and choose Mark Seam. Select the entire cylinder with the A key. Use the U key to open the UV mapping menu and choose Unwrap. Make sure there's no stretching on the UVs. In the Layout workspace, under the Overlays menu, select Face Orientation to make sure the normals are correct. Right-click and choose Shade Auto Smooth to make the cylinder smoother. Use the Z key to go back into Material Preview mode. In the Shading workspace, add a new material called Leather. Select the Principled BSDF and use Ctrl-Shift-T to open the leather textures. Select the color, normal, and roughness. The texture seems a bit too large, so change the scale of the mapping node to 2. Go back to the Layout workspace. In Object mode, add a plane. This will become the strap around the leather. Using R, X, 90, rotate the plane around the X-axis by 90 degrees. Use the S key to scale the plane down to a small rectangle. And use Ctrl-A to apply the transforms. Use the G key to grab the selected plane and use the X key to constrain the movement to the X-axis. Then move the plane to the right side of the leather. Use the G and Z keys to move the plane to the bottom of the leather. In Edit mode, go into Vertex Select mode, which is 1, and deselect the plane by left-clicking anywhere in the viewport. Click and drag while holding down your left mouse button and select the two right side vertices. Use the delete key to delete the vertices. In object mode, select the remaining vertices and apply the transforms a second time. In edit mode, under the modifier tab, add a screw modifier. Increase the screw option to begin making the leather strap. Increase the number of iterations until you have the leather base covered. You can still scale the original two vertices as needed. Add a shrink wrap modifier so you can attach the strap to the leather base. For the target, choose the leather base. Add a solidify modifier. Change the offset to +1 so the thickness will be on the outside of the leather base. Also activate even thickness. Change the thickness to your desired scale. In object mode, right-click on the leather strap and choose Shade Auto Smooth. Starting from the top, hover your cursor over the modifier and use Ctrl-A to apply the modifiers. In the UV editing workspace, select the top and bottom edges of the very bottom faces. Then use Shift-Alt left-click to choose the top and bottom interior edge loops that make up the spiral. Right-click and choose Mark Seam. Use the U key to open the UV mapping menu and choose Unwrap. Make sure there's no stretching on the UVs. Under the Overlays menu, select Face Orientation and make sure the normals are facing the right way. In the Shading workspace, add a new material. Select the Principled BSDF and use Ctrl-Shift-T to open the leather textures. And choose your color, normal, and roughness. The texture is too large, so change the scale of the mapping node to 4. You can also decrease the normal strength if need be. In the Layout workspace, select the Handle Leather and tab into Edit mode. In Edge Select mode, hold down your Alt key and left-click on the very bottom edge. Use Shift, D, and Enter to duplicate it. Use the P key to separate the duplicated circle from the handle leather. Tap back into object mode and rename the duplicated circle in the outliner. Tap back into edit mode and enter vertex select mode. Use the A key to select the object. Use the E key, then enter, followed by the S key to scale the pommel along the X and Y axes. Use E and Z to extrude these vertices down along the Z axis. In edge select mode, use Ctrl R to add an edge loop in the center of this extruded region. Use the S key to scale this edge loop along the X and Y axes. Use Ctrl B to add a bevel, rolling the scroll wheel to add more edge loops. This is a quick way to add a rounded edge to an object. In vertex select mode, select the very bottom rings of vertices. Use the S key to scale the vertices in toward the center for the next section of the pommel. Use E and Z to extrude these vertices down along the Z axis. Use the F key to add a face to the bottom vertices. In face select mode, select the new bottom face. Use Ctrl and B to add a bevel, rolling the scroll wheel to add more edge loops. Select the bottom center face and use Shift S and choose Cursor to Selected. Use Ctrl A to add a UV sphere. Open the popover and notice the blender is using the same options as the first UV sphere. Use the S key to scale the UV sphere down and move it down below the pommel. Use the Z key to enter wireframe mode. Deselect the UV sphere and use the B key to select the first few top face loops. Use the X key to delete the faces and make a flat top. Use the Z key to go back to material preview mode. In face select mode, use circle select, which is the C key, to select the bottom center face and delete it. Select the UV sphere by hovering your cursor over it and using the L key. Scale the UV sphere so it's about the same size as the bottom face of the previous section. In edge select mode, select the row of edges on the top of the UV sphere and shift select the row of edges of the face you just deleted. Right click and bring up the quick tool menu and choose Bridge Edge Loops. This is a quick and easy way to join parts of a mesh together. Tab into object mode, select the pommel and use Ctrl A to apply all the transforms. Right click and choose Shade Auto Smooth. Under the UV editing workspace, Temporarily hide the reference by clicking on the eyeball in the outliner. In front view and edge mode, select the top and bottom edge loops of the pommel sections. In back view, shift select the center vertical edge, removing the horizontal selections on the top and bottom of the pommel. Right-click and choose Mark Seam. Use the A key to select the entire handle. Use the U key to access the Unwrap menu and choose Unwrap. In the Overlays menu, activate Display Stretch. It appears that we do have some stretching on part of the object, but this is within the acceptable level of stretching. Turn off the overlay. Hold down the left mouse button and drag to select the UV islands. Under the UV menu, select Pack Islands. Open the popover and increase the margin to add some padding between the UV islands. Under the Overlays menu, select Face Orientation, and this will show which way the normals are facing on the object. Under the Shading workspace, under the Materials panel, select the existing leather material and delete it. Use the drop-down menu next to the material name and choose the metal material. Back in the Layout workspace, select the handle and tab into Edit mode. In Edge Select mode, select the very top edge of the handle. Use Shift S and choose Cursor to Selected to move the 3D cursor. In Object mode, add a cylinder with 16 vertices and a triangle fan cap fill for the hammerhead. Rename the cylinder in the outliner. Use R, Y, 90, and Enter to rotate it around the Y-axis by 90 degrees. Then use S and X to scale it along the X-axis. In right side view, which is numpad 3, use the S key to scale the cylinder down so it is a bit wider than the handle. And use S and X to scale the cylinder along the X-axis to the proper width. Using the G and X keys, move it along the X-axis into the proper position. Then use the G and Z key to move it up into position. Tab into Edit mode. In Edge Select mode, select the front and back outer edges of the cylinder. Use Ctrl B to add a bit of a bevel. Remember to use your scroll wheel to increase or decrease the number of cuts. Use the A key to select the cylinder. Use Shift D Enter to duplicate it. Then move it into position. In face select mode, use the C key to access the circle select tool. Select the leftmost faces of the second cylinder. Use the I key to inset the faces to approximate the reference. Use the E and X keys to extrude the faces along the X-axis for the smaller part of the hammerhead. Use the E and S keys to scale the faces along the X and Z axes. Use the E and X keys to extrude the faces along the X-axis for the larger part of the hammerhead. Use the I key to inset the faces to approximate the reference. Use the E and X keys to extrude the faces along the X-axis for the smallest part of the hammerhead. Use the Z key to access the quick menu and go into wireframe mode. Use Ctrl R to add a horizontal edge loop to the small part of the hammerhead. With the edge loop selected, use the S key to scale the edge loop inwards. Select the rightmost edge loop of the large section of the hammerhead and scale it down to match the edge of the small section. Repeat this for the leftmost edge of the large section. Use Ctrl R to add a horizontal edge loop to the larger part of the hammerhead. With the edge loop selected, use the S key to scale the edge loop outwards. Use Ctrl B to add a bevel and curve this section of the hammerhead. Use Ctrl R to add a horizontal edge loop to the smallest part of the hammerhead. With the edge loop selected, use the S key to scale the edge loop outwards. Use Ctrl B to add a bevel and curve this section of the hammerhead. Go back into Material Preview. In Face Select mode, use the Circle Select tool and select the back faces of the smallest part of the hammerhead. Use the X key or Delete key to delete the faces. This is unneeded geometry. Add a cube which will act as the connector for the hammerhead. Use the S key to scale the cube until it just overlaps the hammerhead. In wireframe mode, move the cube so it is just intersecting with the top of the handle. Make any adjustments as needed. Select the top face and use the G and Z keys to move the top face up along the Z axis until it's about the same height as the large section of the hammerhead. In edge select mode, hover over the cube and use the L key to select the entire cube. Use Ctrl B to add a small bevel to the edges. Use numpad 7 so you can see the top of the cube. In face select mode, make sure you have only the top face selected, excluding the bevels. Right-click on the face and choose Subdivide. Use the popover to change the number of cuts to 8. Under the Edit menu, open your Preferences. In the Add-ons section, search for a loop. Then activate the Loop Tools option and save your preferences. Deselect the top faces using Alt-A. Use the B key to box select the center faces. Leave 2 faces around the entire border. Tab into Object Mode. Use Ctrl-A and apply all transforms. This will help prevent any unwanted or odd geometry in the next step. Tab back into Edit Mode. Right-click on the selected faces. Under the Loop Tools menu, choose Circle. In Front View, which is numpad 1, use the E key to extrude these faces up along the Z-axis. Use Ctrl-R to add a horizontal loop cut to the center of the extruded. Use the S key to scale the edge loop outwards. Use Ctrl-B to add a bevel, using the scroll wheel to add or subtract edges. Tab into Object Mode. Select the hammerhead and use Ctrl-A to apply all the transforms. Under the UV Editing workspace, temporarily hide the reference. In Front View and Edge mode, select the vertical circular edges of the hammerhead. Horizontal circular edges of the top piece. You may need to make multiple selections. And the top and bottom edge loops of the cube, and one vertical edge loop on the back. You will also need to select one vertical edge along with the bottom horizontal edges of the circular part of the hammerhead. Right-click and choose Mark Seam. Use the A key to select the entire hammerhead. Use the U key to access the Unwrap menu and choose Unwrap. Under the Overlays menu, activate Display Stretch. We do have some stretching on part of the object, but this is within the acceptable level of stretching. Turn off the overlay. Hold down the left mouse button and drag to select the UV islands. Under the UV menu, select Pack Islands. Open the popover and increase the margin to add some padding between the UV islands. Back in the Layout workspace, right-click on the hammerhead to open the Object Context menu and choose Shade Auto Smooth. Under the Overlays menu, select Face Orientation to show which way the normals are facing. Under the Shading workspace, use the drop-down menu next to the material name and choose the metal material. Back in the Layout workspace, add a plane using Shift-A. Rotate it around the x-axis by 90 degrees using RX90. Rotate it around the z-axis by 90 degrees using RZ90. Then rename the plane in the outliner. Tab into Edit mode. Use the Z key to enter wireframe mode. In the right side view, scale the plane along the y-axis using the S and Y keys until it's the same width as the handle. In Edge Select mode, select the top edge. Move the selected edge down along the z-axis using G and Z until it sits just underneath the rounded top of the hammerhead. Temporarily hide the hammerhead. In Vertex Select mode, select the top two vertices. Use Shift-Control-B to bevel the selected vertices, using the scroll wheel to add or subtract more vertices. Tab into Object mode. Select the drag hook and use Ctrl-A to apply all the transforms. Under the Modifiers panel, add a Solidify modifier. Change the thickness to around 0.1. Hover your cursor over the modifier and use Ctrl-A to apply the modifier. Tab back into Edit mode. Use the G and X keys to center the drag hook with the handle. In Edge Select mode, select the bottom two longest edges. Use Ctrl-B to add a bevel, using the scroll wheel to add loop cuts. Use the A key to select the entire mesh. Use Alt and E to scale the drag hook along the normals until it's as thick as the hammerhead. Under the UV Editing workspace, temporarily hide the reference, hammerhead, and handle. In Front View and Edge mode, select the vertical edge loops around the two largest faces. One horizontal edge loop at the top. Right-click and choose Mark Seam. Use the A key to select the entire handle. Use the U key to access the Unwrap menu and choose Unwrap. Under the Overlays menu, activate Display Stretch. It appears that we do have some stretching, but this is within the acceptable level of stretching. Turn off the overlay. Hold down the left mouse button and drag to select the UV islands. Under the UV menu, select Pack Islands. Increase the margin to add some padding between the UV islands. Back in the Layout workspace, right-click on the drag hooks and choose Shade Auto Smooth. Under the Overlays menu, check the face orientation. Use Ctrl-A to apply all the transforms. Open the shading editor. Use the drop-down menu next to the material name and choose the metal material. For the punch, we'll be working with curves. In the Layout workspace, in Object mode, use Shift-A and add a path from the Curves menu. Tab into Edit mode and use the X key or Delete key to delete the vertices. In the toolbar, select the Curve Pen tool. Left-click near the top left of the hammerhead. Left-click approximately halfway down the punch, but do not let go of your left mouse button. Instead, hold down the left mouse button and drag to form a curve. Left-click at the tip of the punch and drag to continue the curve. Add another vertex at the midpoint of the bottom of the punch, and we'll fix that off curve in a moment. Left-click to add a vertex at the bottom left of the hammerhead. Then right-click back on the first vertex to finish the curve. Select the vertex at the tip of the punch. Select the bottom handle and hold down the Shift key. Move the bottom part of the handle upward. Make any adjustments to the upper handle as needed to fix the curve. Select the bottom center vertex. Use the Shift key to make adjustments to each handle to simplify the curve. Select the bottom right handle and move the bottom section of the handle to straighten the right side of the curve. Under the Object Data Properties panel, change the resolution preview to 4 so the mesh won't be too dense. Tab into Object Mode and rename the curve. Right-click on the curve and choose Convert to Mesh. Tab into Edit Mode and temporarily hide the reference. We need to add faces to this punch so we can extrude it and add some bevels. Now note, your punch will be different from mine due to the curve pen tool. If you need to delete unneeded vertices, select them, right-click, and choose Dissolve Vertices. In Vertex Select mode, select 4 vertices with the box select, which is the B key. Then use the F key to fill in a face. Repeat this process until you reach the tip. If you run into a section that has only 3 vertices, select 2 of the vertices, then right-click and choose Subdivide. For the tip of the punch, I'll use 3 vertices and make a triangular face. Select the bottom vertices one at a time and use GG to move them. Try to make the edges as straight as possible. In Edge Select mode, select the rightmost edge. Use S, X, 0 to make sure the edge is flat and plumb. Select the punch using the A key. Then use G and Y to move it back along the Y-axis to align with the top of the hammerhead. Tab into Object mode. Add a Solidify modifier using even thickness. Increase the thickness until the punch is as wide as the hammerhead. Hover your cursor over the modifier and use Ctrl A to apply it. Add a bevel modifier. Increase the segments and lower the amount. Use Ctrl 1 to add a subdivision surface modifier with 1 level. Right-click and choose Shade Auto Smooth. Select the punch and use Ctrl A to add all the transforms. Tab into Edit mode. Use the Z key to enter wireframe mode. Then select the faces, including the bevel, that are facing the hammerhead. Use the X key or Delete key to delete the unnecessary faces. Tab back into Object mode. Go to the UV Editing workspace. In Front View and Edge mode, select the top and bottom edge loop of the punch sections. Then shift select the bottom horizontal edge along the deleted face. Right-click and choose Mark Seam. Use the A key to select the entire handle. Use the U keys to access the Unwrap menu and choose Unwrap. Under the Overlays menu, activate Display Stretch. There appears to be no stretching. Turn off the overlay. Under the UV menu, select Pack Islands. Open the popover and increase the margin to add some padding between the UV islands. Back in the Layout workspace, under the Overlays menu, select Face Orientation. Under the Shading workspace, use the drop-down menu next to the material name and choose the metal material. In the Layout workspace, hover your cursor over the top modifier and use Ctrl-A to apply the modifier. Then repeat this process for the other modifier. Tab into Edit mode. Make sure you're in Edge Select mode. Use the Z key to enter wireframe mode. Select the rightmost edges of the punch. Turn on snapping and choose Edge Closest. Then use the G key to snap the punch to the hammerhead. In Object mode, select each object individually and apply any modifiers that remain. If you wish to export this object to another piece of software, including game engines, you have a few different options. Make sure you have only the objects selected that you want to export. For the OBJ format, go to File, Export, OBJ. Make sure you have Selected Only checked. You can name your object and select where to save it. Then click on Export OBJ. For the FBX format, go to File, Export, FBX. Make sure you have Selected Only checked. You can name your object and select where to save it. Then click Export FBX. For the GLTF format, go to File, Export, GLTF. Make sure you have Selected Only checked. This is found under the Include menu. You can name your object and select where to save it. Then click on Export GLTF. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to help support the channel, please visit my Ko-fi page where you can purchase a digital product from the shop or become a member. I also offer a one-on-one mentorship. If you enjoyed this video on modeling a Maul in Blender, then you're probably interested in 3D modeling or game development. So if you're interested in those topics, you may enjoy this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a good day.